So this, at the moment, the mic is off here. Yes, move. Ladies and gentlemen, 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2. Yeah, she's here. One, two. 1, 2. One, two, 1, 2, 1, 2. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to our next session for our ALASA conference. Before we begin, let me check if Prof Ma can hear us. 1, 2, 1, 2. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to our next session for our ALASA conference. Before we begin, let me check if Prof Ma can hear us. 1, 2. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to our next session for our ALASA conference. Before we begin, let me check if Prof Ma can hear us. 1, 2. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to our next session for our ALASA conference. Before we begin, let me check if Prof Ma can hear us. 1, 2. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to our next session for our ALASA conference. Before we begin, let me check if Prof Ma can hear us. 1, 2. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to our next session for our ALASA conference. Before we begin, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. If Prof Ma can hear us. 1, 2. Ladies and gentlemen, African linguistics at Rhodes University
session for our ALASA conference. Before we begin, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. If Prof Ma can hear us. 1, 2. Ladies and gentlemen,
African linguistics at Rhodes University
session for our ALASA conference. Before we begin, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. If Prof Ma can hear us. 1, 2. Ladies and gentlemen,
African linguistics at Rhodes University
session for our ALASA conference. Before we begin, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. If Prof Ma can hear us. 1, 2. Ladies and gentlemen,
African linguistics at Rhodes University
session to our next conference. Before we begin, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. If Prof Ma
and serves as the executive chief editor since the journal was launched in 2020. Prof Ma
to our next conference. Before we begin, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. If Prof Ma
and serves as the executive chief editor since the journal was launched in 2020. Those publications that you see Prof Ma
to our next conference. Before we begin, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. If Prof Ma
and serves as the executive chief editor since the journal was launched in 2020. Those publications that you see
Prof Ma to our next conference. Before we begin, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. If Prof Ma
and serves as the executive chief editor since the journal was launched in 2020. Those publications that you see
Prof Ma to our next conference. Before we
served.
Since the journal was launched in 2020, those publications that Prof. Ma, to our next conference. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Prof. Ma. Since the journal was launched in 2020, those publications that Prof. Ma, to our next conference. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Prof. Ma. Since the journal was launched in 2020, those publications that Prof. Ma, to our next conference. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Prof. Ma.
I use the website, directly use the website to have this conference, but it shows there is no note that I can click to share.
You can email your presentation to me right now as you begin. We will be projecting it as you continue. Just send through your presentation via email, and then we'll project it for you. We'll try and do that.
Okay, I will send. Should I send, Prof? Should I send to your email or Sanela's email?
Sanela's email. Send to Sanela's email. Yes, he's the one who's on email right now.
Okay.
So as soon as you send it, Prof. Ma, you can begin your presentation. We will project it along the way. So you can, since you have it in front of you, you can carry on. Okay. Siyabonga.
Okay.
Siyabonga.
Siyabonga. I have sent, it shows it has sent to Sanela's email. Please check if you have received it.
Sanela?
Okay, I will start. Good afternoon, everyone. So nice to meet you, although it's online. But I'm really glad to have and honored to have this opportunity. Firstly, I want to thank Prof. Zhanggua's invitation. And although it's a pity that I could not present face by face, but I really appreciate the opportunity of sharing African language teaching in China with all of you. Yes, my name is Xiu Jie Ma, and my Zulu name is ALASA. Yeah, the topic is of this topic is beyond languages, the development of African language teaching and agency in African language education planning in China. This talk includes four parts. The first, I will briefly introduce the theoretical framework, and then the history, transformation, and the prospect of the African language teaching in China. In this research, I mainly adopt Camp and Beldorf's 3 levels language policy and planning, and Joe and Dorf's category about the characters in language policy and planning. According to them, there are 3 levels, macro, meso, and micro levels. And Joe and Dorf divide the actors in language policy and the planning into 3 characters, which are people with expertise, people with influence, and people with power. But this research is not focused on the theoretical analysis, but just to show you how the African language developed from in different level and through this different time. Okay, and I will because there will be involved some like the three characters, I will briefly talk about this three characters. First is people with power, because people with power actually played a very important role in the whole history of African language developing in China. The people with power refer to the national leaders and highly placed officials, including language planning officials working with the state in language policy and planning agencies. People with expertise refers to linguists and applied linguists. Most of them belong to the higher stream of the intellectual elites. And people with influence refers to the social elites, including people with social influence because of their knowledge, skills, their contributions to the society, their personality, their high moral standard, or just the public nature of their careers. So I just check, Prof, have you showed that the presentation has shown?
It has not come through yet.
Oh, sorry, but in my side it shows has been sent. Should I send again?
Use my email address, MUZI.
Prof, please use the other email address.
MUZI.
MUZI.
At Coastlands Ridge.
It's there. Sure.
Or she go right on it.
Okay. Should I?
Yeah, it's there in the in the list of people who are in.
Okay, let me try again. Because the slice is quite big. Okay, it said send again. I have sent the email address MUZI and at Coastland Ridge, and also I have sent Prof. Jean-Hua's email. Okay, I'm going to continue. And then could you please let me know if you have showed the slides? Then I will stop and check which slides I am on.
Yes, we've got the slides.
Okay.
You want me to share it for you?
Okay. Yeah, can you share the screen with me? That would be great. Then I can just see through. Okay. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Yes. No, I have on slide 5. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, now I would like to go through the history of African language teaching in China to understand why we teach the African languages and how we transform the African language teaching in the new millennium. According to the development and the characteristics, we divided the history of African language teaching in China into 3 periods. The pioneer period, which starts from 1960 to 1966, which is short but crucial and inspiring. The second period, we call it the suffocation period, because during this period, the African languages teaching almost perished. And the third period is called Blossom period, which starts from 2000. Okay, and then next slide. Yeah, thank you. Even though many people, no matter inside China or abroad, don't know that there are universities in China offering Swahili and Hausa. Yes, even before I went to South Africa to learn the course, even back that time, I did not know we were teaching the African languages at BFSU. But in fact, the Chinese university have been offering those two languages since 1960s. People may ask why Chinese universities started the African language teaching at that time, since the People's Republic of China, the PRC, was newly founded in 1949, and the whole country was really poor. As we know, in 1950s and in 1960s, a large number of Asian and African nations were fighting for their freedom and independence. And the year of 1960s is the year of Africa. In 1960s, 17 African countries were founded, and most of the African countries colonized by France and the British achieved their independence in 1960s. To support their national liberation movement and to develop the diplomatic relations with those new countries. The first premier of PRC, Mr. Zhou Enlai, this is his picture, instructed that the two universities, one is called Beijing Broadcasting Institute. The name was changed into Communication University of China now. And BFSU to offer a number of Asian African language. He emphasized that in the communication with this Asian and African countries, we must appreciate their language in order to pay respect to their national sentiment. And this actually reminds me about Nelson Mandela's saying. If you talk to a man in a language that understands, that goes his mind. If you talk to him in his language, that goes his heart. Language is not just a language, but is part of the culture and part of the identity and part of the nation. This next slide, please. And this document signed by the first premier, Mr. Zhou, to the BFSU, he clearly instructed that we should teach the native language of some Asian, African, and European countries, which include Swahili, Hausa, Zulu, Amharic, Somali, Yoruba, and Igbo. And he signed this assignment in the beginning of 1960. It should be in the year of 1960. As the result, in August 1960, next slide, please. Yeah, in 1960 August, Beijing Broadcasting Institute established the Swahili major, and 25 students were recruited for the first Swahili class. In 1961 November, BFSU also started to offer Swahili as a major, and 14 students were recruited for that year. And this is the first Swahili class at BFSU, and the Swahili teacher come from Tanzania in the middle, first line. Next slide, please. And in September 1964, BFSU established the Hausa major, and 12 students were recruited for the first Hausa class in China. In November 1965, Beijing Broadcasting Institute also started to offer the Hausa as a major. Okay, next slide, please. Yeah, this is about Zulu. I was so surprised that when I came back, I find that there was a class, a Zulu program back in 1960. In 1965, November, the Beijing Broadcasting Institute also started a 2-year Zulu program, and 16 students were recruited. But unfortunately, the program was terminated in 1969 with the start of the Cultural Revolution. Yes, actually last month I did an interview review with the old professor from the University of Beijing Broadcast Institute, and when I was told him that I was teaching Zulu, and he was so surprised. He was one of the people who was responsible to start this Zulu, but he is teaching Swahili actually. He said he was so difficult to find this Zulu teacher. And at the end, I think they did not find anybody directly from South Africa, but to find somebody from the Russian. Yes, let us look at the difficulties and the challenges that the African language teaching faced at this period. Even now with the development of internet and the new technology, I still find it really tough to set a new major when I came back from South Africa to start this Zulu major. But every time when I felt very stressful, I always thought about how difficult it was when the people established the Swahili and Hausa in 1960s. And that gave me a great encouragement and motivation to continue with my job. The first of all, there are no Chinese who could speak Swahili and Hausa back that time. The Swahili and Hausa teacher either came from Africa or came from Soviet Union. The students were learning Russian or Zulu before they changed into Swahili or Hausa. So the situation was very complicated. And for example, for the Zulu program, the 16 students studied Russian before they joined the Zulu class, and they can't speak English. But the Zulu teacher can only speak Zulu and English. So they could not understand each other. There were 2 English tutors who translated English to Chinese for the student and translate Chinese to English for the teacher, so that the teacher and the student could communicate at the class. And the same situation with the Hausa and Swahili at the beginning. The more unfortunately, the relationship between China and the Soviet Union deteriorated in 1960s. The Swahili teacher at Beijing Broadcasting Institute came from Soviet Union. So in the second year of the Swahili class started, which was 1961, and all the Swahili teacher left China because they are Russians. And those class faced the fate that being disbanded. In this unexpected tough situation, the school started the study group and organized the student to continue with the Swahili by self-teaching, self-teaching and self-study without teacher. I did an interview with the first program, the first group of students, and one of actually, unfortunately, was just passed away last year. And yeah, but when they think back at the time, they told me it was tough, but everybody was work really hard. And amazingly, the students finished their study with a very good results. And many of can use Swahili in the work because most of them either become teachers or went to the foreign fair ministry and worked at as a diplomatic personnel. The third difficulty is there was no proper teaching material or dictionary in China, nowhere to find them, because nowadays we can use internet, but back to 60s, it was extremely difficult to travel in Africa from China, and the teacher was really excited when they found any material that's like a book or old papers. And during the interview, the old students or the professors told me that, yeah, the most of the their learning material is newspaper, but it's a very old newspaper because they can't get the updated newspaper. Yeah, and then they also use the manual graphs to make copies for handouts. So here, yeah, this slides, there are the Swahili handouts made by the teachers at the BFSU, and that is in the archive at our university. Okay, next, yeah, thank you. Although it faced a lot of difficulties and challenges, this period made a great achievement that is really impressive when we look back. The two universities, BFSU and Beijing Broadcasting Institute, cultivate quite a number of Swahili and Hausa students. Here are in this slides are the graduates of Swahili in 60s. Yeah, in this two university. Next slides, please. Yeah, next, this is the Hausa graduates. And most of the Swahili and Hausa graduates in 60s went to the Chinese ministry, such as Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Ministry of Commercial Foreign Aid Office of the Ministry of Railways, and the Xinhua News Agency or China Radio International. They made important contribution to the communication and diplomatic relation between China and Eastern African countries, and also China and Western African countries. And nowadays, people often use either English or French in the diplomatic events with African countries. But back to 60s, the Swahili was once used when the Chinese leaders met with the delegates from Eastern Africa. This is the two picture with the Chairman Mo. The first one is on the 21st May 1963 when Chairman Mo met with the women delegation from Tanganyika. The Swahili teacher from BSSU, Professor Shen Zhiying, was the translator. She translated Chinese directly into Swahili, and Swahili into Chinese. And in the second picture is 1965. Swahili was also used when Chairman Mo met with the First Lady of Zanzibar, Madam Karuma. Okay. This is another the events. That is the Premier Zhou Enlai visit Tanzania. The Professor Shen Zhiying also served as the Swahili interpreter. During his visit, the Premier delivered a speech at the National Stadium of Tanzania, and the Swahili translated by Professor Shen came out. And that was a very success, according to the news report. Okay, and yeah, next. Here I'm going to is about briefly do an analysis about this stage. Actually, at this stage, when we look back, the development of the African language teaching in China and how it was founded, and we can see for this period, the people with power at the macro level, in particular the primary played a very important role in the African language planning and policy. Without them, the African language teaching could not be developed in this period. From the 1960, because as we know, in 1966, the start and the Cultural Revolution was started, and then the African language teaching was largely set back. From 1966 to 1976, there were only one class of Swahili. It was recruited in 1961. No Xhosa class at all. The Zulu program was completely aborted in 1966. After the Cultural Revolution, with the reform and open policy, the higher education and academic research was rebooted. The foreign language teaching was emphasized, but somehow the people in China believed that English, French, or other commonly used language like Spanish could replace the less commonly used language, including African language. So the African language teaching was largely marginalized. We can see, until 1999, after the Cultural Revolution end, that was 1976, and to 1999, in this 24 years, the Beijing Broadcast Institute only had one Swahili class, and that was in 1990, and BFSU only have two Swahili class, and two Swahili class, and two Xhosa classes. That was very little compared the previous period. At this period, the people, next slide, please. At this period, as we see, the people with the power at the macro level still plays a very important role in the African development and planning. The decisions from the decisions from the top is directly cause the stagnant situation of African language teaching in China. In particular during the Cultural Revolution, because all foreign language almost perished. But even after the revolution, and also the decisions from the top part emphasize the more commonly, particularly English instead of the African language. Let us look at the new period. The new period. This started from 2000, and because from the 2000, the relationship between China and Africa was developed really fast. In 2000, the Forum for China and Africa Cooperation was founded. The African studies was headed up in China. The teaching of African language is also given more attention. In the next year, that is 2001, the Ministry of Education established 7 national base for training undergraduates of less commonly used language. BFSU and Communication University of China, which was the Broadcast Institute previously, was on the list of this national base for less commonly used language. This largely promoted the development of African language teaching. Since 2000, BFSU has a new Swahili and Xhosa class every 4 years, as shown in this table. This is the number of the students at this class at BFSU. And And apart from the BFSU and the CUU, the two universities have the tradition for African language teaching. The next slide, please. There are several other universities, including the Tianjin Foreign Studies University, PLA Information Engineer University, and the Shanghai International Studies University also start to offer Swahili as a major. For Hausa, apart from BFSU, Tianjin Foreign Studies University started to offer Hausa as a major from 2017. Okay, next slide. Besides Swahili and Hausa, and BFSU also started more African language majors. In September 2018, BFSU started to offer the Zulu as a major. And this picture is the first group of the Zulu students. They graduated their BA in 2022. Okay, in 2020, the Amharic major was established. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is the picture with the first group of the Amharic major, and this group of students they have just graduated this year. And in 2021, the Malagasy major was established. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is the Malagasy major class, and they are going to graduate next year. Okay, up to now, next slide, please. Yes, I just have a talk is the major. There are 5 languages: Swahili, Hausa, Zulu, Amharic, and Malagasy. They are major, teaching as major. Apart from these 5 languages, there are also another 15 African languages. They have been approved by the Ministry of Education at BFSU, that they are offered as a 3rd additional foreign languages, like Somali, Burundi, Yoruba. Now have been offered as a 3rd additional language for 4 years. Yes, for 4 years. And for language like Shona, Tswana, and Cameroon, BFSU had include Isidabale and Tswana. The BFSU has sent a teacher or postgraduate to learn these languages. When they come back, and they're going to study the language. Eventually, the aim is that the BFSU will offer different courses for this 20 African languages. For the development of African language teaching at this period, the people with the power, people with expertise, and the people with the influence, they all played their roles. The people with the power directly play their roles in African language planning and policy, and promote the position of African language in higher education system. For the people with expertise, they are members of the advisory committee of a less commonly taught language, of a national foreign language teaching advisory board, and the Ministry of Education. So a lot of the policy including how to develop the major directly come from this committee. And they also made the rules about how to make the proficiency test and the requirement of the graduates. With people with influence, in particular the research in African studies, and the businessmen, the diplomatic personnel realize the importance of the African language in researching, business, and communication. So they appeal the education ministry and also the university to offer African language course through articles and the public speeches or the proposition to the government. So all this reason and made the development of Africa in the new area, period. Okay. Yes, let us look at the transformation of African language teaching briefly. As we mentioned previously, in 1960s, all the graduates of Swahili and Hausa, they went to ministry, news agency, or radio stations. But now there are still, although there are still students who work at the ministry after their graduation, but the number is limited. For each class, maybe 1 to 2 students. For example, I think the Amharic, there is 2 graduates are going to work in the Chinese embassy in Ethiopia. But the other students, they have they have different various of jobs or continue their studies. So now, generally speaking, 1/3 students start to work directly and they do various kind of jobs. For instance, the Swahilis, last year there are 2 Swahili graduates went to TikTok, and 1/3 of the students, they would continue their masters in Chinese universities, and another 1/3 they would go to overseas to do their further studies. There is, more importantly for the student who continue their further studies, their research discipline, although it's different one from another, but there are students, they continue with either African linguistic literature or even there's some doing some like economic or international relationship, but it's mainly related to African studies. It's focused on African like economic, African politics. So yeah, this is the graduate situation about the graduation. So in order to adopt this situation, the university has transformed the program. Yeah, here I'm going to take the BFSU as a model. Okay. The goal of African language teaching at BFSU is not just cultivate graduates who can speak African language fluently, but to cultivate interdisciplinary multilingual talents with a global vision. A student should master at least 2 foreign languages, 1 African language, and 1 commonly used language like English or French. In fact, most of the students, they can also learn another African language as a 3rd additional foreign language. It is normally close to their major language, like the students who learned Swahili, they might learn the Burundi as a 3rd additional language. And the students are also required to take a course of a certain discipline in order to get the required credit for graduate. That is actually similar in South Africa's university system. And they can choose the discipline according to their interests. The student should be proficiency in the language and the knowledge of the discipline they choose. They should also have common language via their liberty education. But here, yes, this slide shows the aim. There is like the student should be multilingual, interdisciplinary, and international and high caliber. And for the multilingual, the language sorry, it's still last slide. Yeah, still, thank you. For the multilingualism, the language education, the training is one of the strong points of BFSU. The African language teaching explored this advantage from design the curriculum and the way of teaching to teach the materials, to teaching the materials and the requirement of the teacher to make sure the student can be able to truly master the target language in their 4 years. In general, for the major language, they are around 10 hours course per week, last 4 years. So that is very tense. And largely different from the South African the second language teaching, because I learned this course at Rose. We normally have like 4 hours or 6 hours that last 3 years. But here we have at least 10 hours per week and last 4 years. And the graduates, they are supposed to can speak the language to the translation. If they go to the Chinese embassy in African countries, they should be be able to do the translation, use the African language. Apart from the major language, all students are required to do certain a number of English courses to make sure they can speak English fluently. Students are also encouraged to have double degrees. As for example, they are doing English as a second major, or do a third additional foreign language. To the interdiscipline, the student can do double degree or minor a specialty like journalism, business, law, financial. The School of Africa also have a joint undergraduate program with law school, business school, and the international journalism school. So students can do their joint undergraduate programs.
Annalisa,
in order,
Annalisa, you are now left with 5 minutes to wrap up the presentation. Is that okay?
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
All right.
In order to make sure the students have a global vision, the most students have their opportunity to go the native student for language learning, language and culture for 6 months. Like all Zulu students are going to Durban. If they get the visa, they are going to end of this month to learn Zulu at DOT for 6 months. Yes, and then this is actually the last the page. Yes, with the future for the African language teaching. This is the model that we are doing, including the Zulu program. The Zulu program. We are trying to make cultivate students not just learning language, because if you just master one African language, it's really difficult for students to get a job now. There's first is try to improve the multilingual and interdiscipline model in practice. That is, I just mentioned, and it is also the second is enhance the lecturers' ability of teaching and researching and have a high caliber scholars. The thirdly is develop textbook and dictionary. In particular for the newly established language majors, the proper teaching material are still very limited, and that is which we are actually every major, including myself, we are trying to write Chinese, like Zulu Chinese or Madagascar Chinese textbook. Because we do use the textbook that we can get from South Africa, but that is not quite fit or syllabus or training the aim of China. And then, also the university, including the department and the school, and try to upgrade the cooperation with the university at home and abroad, in particular the University of Africa. And I hope that we in the future we could have more university. Now we already have a very good cooperation with the UKZN and DOT. And in the future, we would like to have more cooperation of the other universities in South Africa, because we are going to start the Tswana and Isidabele. One of my master students, she is learning the Isidabele in South Africa. Okay, is time up, Prof?
Yes,
Yeah, now
yes,
I'm
but
going to
like
finish
you are
with.
almost done with just this slide and then this one. So you are actually done. So do you
Okay.
want to say something about
Yeah.
this picture and then you are
No,
almost done?
yes, I just want to show is this picture was all the uh, professors from the School of Africa at BFSU. Some of although it's retired, they are all there. If yeah, just to briefly show you the people who are working with the African language teaching, and there are also African lecturers from South Africa, Tanzania, and we would hope we can invite the more the native professors to come. We have the programs for exchange, scholar exchange. Yeah, we would like to have more professors, scholars from Africa for the communication. Okay, thank you, Prof. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Yeah, thank
A
you.
big round of applause for Professor Ma.
Yeah, thank you, thank you.
Thank you
Siyabonga
very much,
kakhulu.
Prof. Ma. Normally, we don't ask delegates, I mean the keynote speakers, questions after their presentation. I would have loved that we engage you more on your presentation since you are not with us and we won't be able to mingle with you during our breaks. But time is against us. So we thank you very, very much, Prof. Ma. I happened to visit Prof. Ma's University at BFCU April this year, and I was able to meet her dean there, the one that I was showing you, and also one of the isiZulu lecturers who was working with Prof. Ma, Umthuli Buthelezi. We thank you very much. Colleagues, you have heard that BFSU is also intending to introduce Sindebele and work with some of the universities. I saw Midlands State University is represented here. I hope they're listening. And any other university that is offering Sindebele, Setswana. So for our universities that are offering Setswana, there is an opportunity to collaborate with BFSU. You heard in her presentation the need for teaching or for students to learn at least 2 foreign languages. So if you listen to this, this is in line with the language policy framework for higher education that requires us as universities at least to recognize 2 African languages in our language policies. And here, in their degree, before you complete your degree, you should have done those courses. So it's very, very important. So, Prof. Ma, siyabonga kakhulu, ubulise,
Yes, yeah.
kubafundi bethu besiZulu lapho siyathemba ukubabona ke esikhathini esingesingakanani eThekwini.
Yebo, siyabonga kakhulu, Solwazi.
All right. Siyabonga kakhulu ke. Another big round of applause as we say goodbye to Prof. Ma.
Yeah, sobonana, sobonana. Ngizovakasha ngonyaka ozayo, okuzayo.
Siyabonga kakhulu, siyajabula kakhulu ukukubona. Siyabonga.
Yeah,
Okay. All
siyabonga,
right.
siyabonga.
Thank you very much, Sanele.
Salani kahle.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think we're done with this session. I think there are some presentations. Prof. Zulu, do you have some announcements for presentations before the AGM? Are there other presentations after this one, before the AGM? We do go for the AGM later? Okay. Do you want to announce, Prof, anything?
No, there are presentations now.
Yes.
Then after that is AGM.
Is AGM. Okay, colleagues, I think it's tea time. We'll go for tea and then after that we go to our breakaways. AGM after that, colleagues. Siyabonga kakhulu. Enkosi. Siyalebuha. I don't know which red one I need to. Thank you so much. Umuzi ne? Umuzi. Siyabonga kakhulu Muzi.